A very good afternoon, all. I am Dr. Ashwin from Dr. Ashwin's Advanced Diabetes Center. So, 3 months back, I got a call from one of my old friends. I knew she was pregnant. She's a cardiologist right now. So, she got worried. She called me all the way back from Guwahati. So, her fasting levels were somewhere around 120 ish. After food, 2 hours, postprandial values were somewhere around 160. So, the endocrinologist started her on insulin. She was on uh, aspart 2 units thrice daily and Glargine 5 units at night. I know it's subdosing, but having said that, she was worried her blood sugars were not coming down, even after initiating insulin 4 times a day. So she asked me whether I should up titrate, whether I should increase my doses. I said, ideally, yes, but better go and meet your endocrinologist again or meet your doctor again. So the doses were escalated. From 2, it became 4, and 4 it became 6, and the story almost remained the same. It was the fasting never came down below 100. So I told her over phone, yes, we all are doctors. You can discuss the possibility of initiating a metformin. So next visit, she visited, and then as a doctor to doctor conversation, she asked whether I can start metformin. So it was a yes from the doctor's side, and the fasting is sitting nicely was around 80s, and where the target where we wanted it to be. And the insulin doses were slowly de-escalated to the lower doses, and later she was on a metformin and a basal insulin therapy. So that's the story. I just wanted to set the stage. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'll be trying to say that metformin should replace insulin as a first line in gestational diabetes mellitus. Rather, I should be saying metformin can be safely used in GTM. This should be the ideal statement. So I was forced to start the topic that was given to me. So this we know as researchers, as physicians, as doctors doing active research. This is the pyramid we all look up to for doing research, right? The topmost one is systematic review and meta-analysis. So anything we want to practice, we just doesn't go for anecdotal evidences or experiences. We go for meta-analysis, systematic reviews, RCTs, and so on. My guru, who taught me diabetes from A to Z, told me that the biggest meta-analysis is the test of time. So if a molecule had stood test of time, that means it is one of the best molecules to use in your clinical practice. So that's why I said the definitive validation of a pharmacological agent transcends meta-analysis and real-world evidence. It is established only through decades of longitudinal clinical application. And I'm so sure you would be agreeing with me on this because I am talking about metformin here. So we know we have been discussing about this. It's a growing public health concern, gestational diabetes, maternal complications. When we talk about GDM, we talk about the maternal complications such as preeclampsia, cesarean delivery, birth trauma, elevated long-term risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So whether are we actually targeting these complications when we are treating GDM, or are we just looking at the blood sugar values as mere numbers? That's the real question here. Neonatal complications, we know macrosomia and LGA infants. Neonatal hypoglycemia, respiratory distress syndrome, and birth injuries are common in diabetes patients. Current management approaches for GDM, we know first line is self monitoring and lifestyle modifications. Dietary changes we always advise. And insulin therapy is the current gold standard according to ADA 2026 guidelines. But having said that, my job is not to talk about insulin. My job is to talk about the limitations of insulin therapy. So, even though it is traditional gold standard, effective glycemic control is definitely associated with maternal weight gain, and there is an increased risk of maternal hypoglycemic episodes. Metformin, basically, we are not dealing with a situation where there is a deficiency of insulin in the patient's body. We are dealing with an insulin resistant milieu. So the ideal molecule we initiate, we shouldn't be putting fuel in the fire. We should be initiating a molecule which can reduce the insulin resistance so that the blood sugar values comes down towards the normal range. So metformin is exactly that molecule which enhances insulin sensitivity in peripheral tissues, reduces HGP production. We know all these mechanisms of insulin. I don't think this audience needs a introduction to metformin. But the safety concerns, having said that, it crosses placenta with fetal concentrations similar to maternal levels, mind you. No established teratogenic organogenesis, potential influence on fetal metabolic program. I'll come to that later. Clinical guidelines, international variations are all across the world. Our own RSSDI actually promotes metformin usage in pregnancy, but again, insulin will be the first choice. American guidelines, insulin is the first choice, and UK guidelines usually say metformin can be or accepted as a first line after 20 weeks. FIGO also supports metformin usage. So, need for evidence synthesis, we as physicians, we usually get confused whether to start metformin, whether not to give insulin or not. So, we are going through a meta analysis recently published in 2025, and maternal outcomes and everything compared with metformin and insulin therapy. So, this was done with PICO framework for evidence synthesis. Neonatal hypoglycemia, the meta-analysis report shows it heavily favored metformin usage when compared with insulin in terms of neonatal hypoglycemia. That's one part of it. Next comes the birth weight, the meta-analysis results. Birth weight, we don't want large babies. We want babies who are actually weighing normal range. We don't want low birth weight also. Metformin comes in that group, but there were studies mentioning that small for gestational age babies were also there with metformin usage. But later in certain meta-analysis, this argument is being disproven. Other maternal pregnancy outcomes, there is no significant difference in cesarean section rates, trend toward reduced gestational weight gain with metformin, lower rates of maternal hypoglycemia with metformin, and long-term offspring body composition. One more important point was when in utero the baby was exposed to metformin, when that baby grows, becomes an adult, usually they become obese or they gain fat. That was the one disadvantage metformin had. But 2025 study showed that it's not visceral fat, it's a subcutaneous fat which can actually be protective of that person. So it's not any danger at all. The fat deposit we are talking about of due to metformin usage in utero is not dangerous for the baby when he or she grows up. So, maternal long term metabolic outcomes, there is no significant difference in prediabetes risk, no significant difference in type 2 diabetes risk, and these are not statistically significant. Key clinical implications are metformin appears safe and effective for GDM, associated with reduced neonatal hypoglycemia, modest reduction in birth weight, may reduce preeclampsia risk compared to insulin therapy. But let's look from the patient's perspective. All of our patient will have needle phobia no matter what. I know motivated pregnant patient, we have been having discussion since morning. But yes, as patient, if you look from patient's perspective, needle is actually a big challenge. If you are not giving once daily. Actually, when you're giving basal bolus therapy to a pregnant patient, you're injecting the patient 4 times a day. Many a times patient will be apprehensive of injecting it to the abdomen, whether the needle will go inside and prick the baby. All those questions they are going to ask us definitely. Second is the cost of therapy. Metformin versus insulin, just compare. We are not using the older generation insulins right now, right? But the cost of therapy, it's peanuts and then gold. Kind of like that for 10 months if you're using. So there's a need for continuous monitoring when we are using insulin. We all know that SMBG, CGM, whatever we call it, the need for continuous glucose monitoring is a definite necessity when the patient is put on insulin. So patient has to buy CGMs, glucometers, everything. Not only that, the stress levels are automatically increases because definitely there will be fluctuation. I'm not saying when the patient is put on metformin, he or she doesn't need to check her do her SMBG at all, but the rate at which the patient is doing SMBG will be much lesser than when she is on insulin. More hospital visits, the dose adjustments, more phone calls, more stress for the doctor, more stress for the patient, more stress for the relatives of the patient as well. So hypoglycemia also, metformin with the least hypoglycemic risk, insulin among these two when compared, insulin has higher hypoglycemic risk. So, concluding, balancing evidence and uncertainty, metformin offers comparable short term safety with some potential advantages. Individual treatment decisions should consider patient preferences and context. Guideline variations reflect genuine evidence uncertainty. So, it's up to us. I think we shouldn't be sticking only to the guidelines. That's where, see, when ADS started talking about GLP-1 RS as first line therapy, we were never using it. We were still using metformin. When ADS started discouraging sulfonylurea usage, till now, 50% of my patients I am treating are on sulfonylureas, at least 50% of them. So we are not guideline oriented. We are not treating the patient simply on guidelines. We are treating on a patient to patient basis. In that way, I think we should always consider metformin and give the benefit of this molecule also. So that's all. Thank you all for patient listening.